Hello and welcome to the Joe Ligato Show. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Ligato, and today we're going to be talking about what the U.S. News and World Report thinks are the top countries in terms of their military. And this article is going to be a little bit messed up because I have it in dark mode, so some things will be repeated, but all the content we want to go over is in the article. So what does U.S. News and World Report consider to be the countries with the strongest military? And so in first place is Russia. Okay, so a little bit of a shocker there. People tend to think about China because of its large population size and its manufacturing capacity and low cost for all types of goods, or they think of the United States with its money printer and military industrial complex and the fact that it's involved in a ton of wars throughout its entire history. Aside from like 16 years, it hasn't been in war for the entirety of its history. But Russia, given the lessons it learned from the Ukraine crisis, and given the fact that Ukraine was trained, equipped, and funded by NATO, shows that Russia is a dominant force. They are completely defeating Ukraine on the battlefield. All of the propaganda pretending like Ukraine was winning is just not effective anymore. People are starting to admit that Russia is extremely strong, actually much stronger than it was at the beginning of the war. And so let's see what it says here in regards to what is its justification for putting Russia first as the strongest military in the world. The scale of Russia is difficult to imagine. It is the world's largest country by landmass, nearly twice as big as Canada, the world's second largest nation, and covers all of Northern Asia and much of Eastern Europe. Okay, so a few things to mention here. Not only is it the largest country by landmass, but I believe it spans 11 time zones. And on top of that, I know definitively it has the most natural resources of any country in the world. And so Russia is a country that the West, the neo-colonial West, is extremely interested in overthrowing because they want to exploit the populace and extract their resources. And Russia's just not allowing that to happen. I've said this in other videos, but I'm just so impressed with Russia, because Russia is, I've said this before, punching far above its weight class, considering its demographic problem with low fertility rates, high substance abuse, alcohol abuse rates, and just all the things that it has going wrong in its country, and the fact that the West, with its money printer, is doing everything possible to destroy Russia as a country. And given the fact that they sent Zionist oligarchs to destroy the country after the fall of the Soviet Union, you would expect Russia to be in a much worse position. But instead of being in a worse position because of what I like to say, Vladimir Putin's willpower and duct tape, they are not only staying above water here, but they are considered the top nation in terms of military. And I don't know if I personally would put them as top military. I'd probably put China and then Russia. People tend to overestimate the United States, but the thing is, the United States loses so many wars. I mean, in Korea, it reached a stalemate. It lost Vietnam. It lost Iraq. It lost Afghanistan. I mean, maybe you can't say it lost Iraq, but I mean, once the United States really pulls out of Iraq, it lost Iraq. I mean, Iraq is mainly Shia, Iranian influence at this point, and the only reason they haven't been totally pushed out, the Americans, was because America has threatened to freeze the assets of Iraq if they do push the United States out. So it's clearly, I say Iraq, I usually say Iraq. My pronunciations are horribly off. I apologize for that. But clearly what I'm trying to say here is that the United States is not the power you think it is. Its military industrial complex focuses on making a few very fancy, very expensive, very slow to produce trinkets. And what we're recognizing from the battlefield between Russia and Ukraine is things like cheap drones can take out multi-million-dollar pieces of Western equipment. And it's order of magnitudes more money being spent by the Americans to wage a less effective war. And so I put Russia and China up there as 1 and 2. You can debate which is first. We don't really know with China because they're a very pacifist country. But with their manufacturing capacity, I think they could really turn that around pretty quickly if they needed to. And so that's what I'm banking on. But United States, I would say definitively is a third place. So let's see where they put them. Okay, so this just repeats. I apologize for that. That's, oh wait, I didn't even finish this. I spent 5 minutes talking about just the first sentence. Not even the first sentence, part of the first sentence. Okay. I guess it was the entire first sentence. Okay, so it says it shares a land border with more than a dozen countries and shares sea borders with Japan and the United States. So yeah, that's a few things people don't realize is Russia is in a good place in terms of being able to contest Western influence across Japan and the United States if it absolutely had to. It does regular naval patrols, training exercises with China as well, and it shares a large land border with China. And quite frankly, it would be a far larger land border if you just kind of ignore Mongolia. Mongolia is a country of like 3.3 million people. And so I don't think anyone really takes it seriously. I apologize to the Mongolians who might be listening. But if it came down to it, if either one of those countries, Russia or China, wanted to just use the Mongolian border to get to the other country if they face a conflict, which obviously they're not going to because they're allies, Mongolia pretty much would not be considered even existing as a country. It's almost a false country there, being tucked in between these two much larger countries. So I consider really China's entire northern border there to be with Russia, because Mongolia, I just unfortunately do not consider it overly highly, just because it is too small of a country surrounded by much larger countries. So let's move on. What do they consider number two? I think this is a mistake. They consider the United States the second strongest military, and I don't know what they're using to back that up, because the United States is, I mean, they're losing in Russia, they've lost in Afghanistan, they're losing all across the world. I mean, they're people just don't trust them anymore. They're not buying equipment from them. They're not using their dollar, and so they can't continue to print money to fund their war machine. I mean, the United States, I just don't see it as second best. It's third, I would say, but not second best, because putting it second best means you'd have to put it above a China, which has a massive population and a way bigger manufacturing capacity than the United States. Far, far, far bigger manufacturing capacity than the United States. So I just don't see any way that the United States will come out on top in a long war. Sure, if there's a short conflict, the United States has some very fancy trinkets, but in terms of a sustained peer-to-peer competition between the United States and China, I just do not see it. So I disagree with U.S. News and World Report here. But it says the United States of America is a North American nation that is the world's most dominant economic and military power. I don't agree with that. There's a lot of research now showing that China is the most dominant economic power. In terms of military power, well, why would they put that in second if they consider it the world's most dominant military power? So this doesn't even make sense here, given the ranking that they came up with Russia at the top. And we can clearly, definitively say they're not the most dominant military power because they're losing to Russia. And for anyone who thinks that Russia and the United States are not in direct conflict, you're fooling yourselves, because since 2014, when the democratically elected government of Ukraine was overthrown, United States, all of NATO has been training Ukrainians. They've been equipping Ukrainians, and since the beginning of the war, they've been just funding the entire Ukrainian government and economy, just propping it up all by themselves, and Ukraine is not really able to function without that assistance. And so this is essentially a conflict between the United States and Russia at this point. There's a ton of United States advisors and mercenaries going into the Ukrainian conflict, and it's still not showing them as the most dominant power. So obviously, I strongly disagree with this. And then it goes on to say, likewise, its cultural imprint spans the world, led in large part by its popular culture, expressed in music, movies, and television. I think that's declining. People are really sick of American culture. It's disgusting. It's degenerate. It's hedonistic. It's like the junk food of culture. It's like it's terrible. It's an abomination of actual culture. Okay, so let's see what it says for third. Third is home of one of the world's oldest civilizations. China has been ruled by the Communist Party since 1949, when the nation was established as the People's Republic of China. The country is the world's most populous, and it is considered the second largest by land mass. Okay, so wait a minute. It's considered the second largest by land. No, I thought Canada was. Wait, what? Wait a minute. this article, oh no, U.S. News and World Report. Okay, I'm very confident that Canada is the second largest by land mass, and it literally says it. If you scroll up to the first strongest military country, it says it is the world's largest country by land mass, talking about Russia, nearly twice as big as Canada, the world's second largest. And then when you come down here, it says China is the second largest by land mass. So it just refutes itself, going from 1 to 3rd on the strongest military list. This is obviously, it doesn't take many qualifications, much competence to write this list, because they just clearly do not know what they're talking about here. I'm either way, they're wrong, because they say 2 separate countries are the second largest by land mass, but I'm pretty confident that Canada is the second largest by land mass. Either way, they don't really go into much detail here about why China is 3rd on this list. So it says its oldest civilization. It says when the Communist Party formed, when the nation was established. Talks about how it's the most populous. I think this was actually replaced by India as the most populous country over the past year. So, and then it gets this fact wrong down here. So yeah, it's weird list to have this ranking here and then just not talk anything about the military. Like, they literally don't mention anything about the manufacturing capacity of China, the size of the army, the size of the navy. They don't talk about any of that here. And this is a military ranking list. So that's weird. I think we're only going to go over like the top. We'll go over a few more here. I do want to go over Israel here, the 4th strongest. So Israel is now massacring, genociding the Gazan population. And I love how they say it's the only Jewish nation in the world, meaning it is a racially and religiously apartheid state. It's dominated by a specific religion, a specific ethnic group, and it's a horrible, horrible country that it's a colonial power, does not have a right to exist under international law, particularly because it is genociding a population. Okay. Yeah, the country has a strong economy, landmarks of significance to several religions, and strained relationship with many of its Arab neighbors. I'm confused about why they put it this highly. I understand it's at least somewhat technologically advanced, but like I'd be curious to see the last name of the person who wrote this, because I would certainly not put Israel this high. They're only able to do what they're able to do because the United States gives them billions of dollars per year in military funding. So that's kind of ridiculous for me. South Korea here, I don't understand how they could put South Korea here. So I have a lot of South Korean friends. And the thing is about South Korea, their capital, Seoul, is constantly in the crosshairs of North Korea. So like, and a lot of their country, the prosperity of their country comes from their capital. And so at any time, their capital could be wiped out in a conflict between North and South Korea. So I don't understand why they'd put this as the 5th strongest military, because it's really not. I wouldn't even consider it stronger than the North Koreans at this point. But we're going to skip over some of this. Oh, they put Ukraine here for 6th. This is ridiculous too, because Ukraine is clearly losing. It's considered the most corrupt country in the world. It's propped up by Western influence. I mean, it's collapsing. In fact, this video is it's recorded a few weeks, maybe months, before it actually gets put out there. And by the time this video is actually put out there, it's entirely possible that Ukraine just completely collapses, because at this point, Ukraine is losing across every battlefront, across the entire theater of war. And it's like, it can't be propped up for very much longer, especially because the United States wants to transition its funding over to helping Israel instead. Let's see, what else do they say? They put Iran here, which makes a lot of sense given its large population size, its large economy, the fact that it's managed to circumvent Western sanctions. UK is a declining power in recession, so we're not going to spend too much time talking about them. Again, same with Germany. Okay, Turkey up here, one of the largest militaries in Europe, alongside with Russia. And before the war, Ukraine had a massive military buildup, and so they were one of the top 3 as well. So this is a very strong country, although they have very high inflation. I'm trying to think about who else I expected to see up here. I think that's pretty much everyone for a top 10 list. Japan's been completely neutered after World War II. I think they got the ordering wrong here to a decently large extent. Well, I said Israel probably shouldn't be on this list or shouldn't be as high. Yeah, that's the thing. Okay, so clearly, I think it was Turkey that was number 10 here. Yeah, Turkey is number 10 here. Turkey has like 1 million person military, 1 million person army. And that's just like its standing force, right? They're ridiculously powerful, a decently large country. And they say Istanbul itself is home to 14 million people. The capital, or no, that's not the capital. Ankara is the capital. But that large city, Istanbul, during the Byzantine Empire, known as Constantinople, has a larger population than Israel. So it's like, well, I think they have a larger population than Israel. But this one city is of at least roughly equivalent size to Israel. So I don't see how they put Israel so much higher, considering Turkey can bring to bear not only its own country and its own military force and its own overwhelming numbers, but also can bring to bear probably other Middle Eastern countries, other Muslim countries, due to the fact that they are a leading great power amongst the Muslim world because of their Ottoman Empire heritage. So I would, at the very least, put Israel as 10th. And I'd have to think about it who I'd put above Israel if I wanted to push them off the top 10 list. I mean, just considering population size, and you have to consider it, even if India's military isn't the most advanced, just in terms of overwhelming numbers, if you put Israel and India next to each other, India would very clearly, definitively win. So I think I would put them on that list as well. Any other countries there? Let's think about this. I think that might be it. So Israel really is actually getting, well, I mean, you could probably put an Egypt out there just because of their population size. Or a Brazil or a Nigeria. Yeah, there's actually a few countries, just due to overwhelming numerical advantage, I'd put them ahead of an Israel. But that is my thoughts on this list by U.S. News and World Report. I do think they messed up a few times here. They even contradicted themselves. I think they got some of the ordering wrong. But one real takeaway here is this propaganda apparatus, this propaganda outlet, U.S. News and World Report, is admitting that Russia is far stronger than the United States expected at the beginning of this war. And by putting Russia far ahead of Ukraine on this listing, and even ahead of the United States and Germany and UK, they are admitting that Russia is essentially winning the war, and they're even stronger than pre-war because they would not have put Russia this high up pre-war in terms of strongest military. So if you found this video to be informative, helpful, enlightening, please give us a thumbs up. It does help us in the algorithm. Please subscribe to our channel on YouTube or Rumble for more content. We are producing one piece of long-form content every single day. And tell a friend about our channel. We are being suppressed in the algorithm. We know we're fine with it, but we do want to get our word out there as much as possible. We do want to open people's eyes as much as possible. We will do more things in terms of marketing in the future. Right now, it's really just practice. And if organic growth doesn't occur, I do have some methods of fostering growth for this channel. And leave us a comment in the comment box below. Questions, comments, concerns, critiques. I do read all of them, and I do respond when necessary. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.